Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple. Today we have a review of the collector's edition of Everdell from Starling Games. It is a 1-4 player that takes about 60 minutes to play. And you originally told me this was a light worker placement game, and I think it's anything but light.
I think so. Yeah, I think that it's easy to learn, but
I agree.
The more I play it, there's a ton of depth that kind of comes out in like making your decisions.
Well, also it's got a very simple theme to it too, so it's very appealing right from the start, but it's a little bit deceptive because you do have this giant tableau and you have all these different things keying off each other, which is pretty cool.
The game is, when you mentioned the theme, the game is super thematic, and I think that's what drew me to the game in the first place. Was it's almost like a Redwall theme. You have all these little animals living underneath this giant tree trying to build their own little settlements.
Yeah. Number one, this game is beautiful.
Yeah,
like it's very deceptive when you look at it. And I have to say, before we even get into talking about the components and talking about our review, I kind of wrote this game off when I saw it on originally what was on Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it might be a little bit too light. Number one, the game is stunningly beautiful. Number two, it's really fun to play.
Yeah, and these components too are fantastic. I think those berries
are amazing.
Might be one of the coolest components I've ever seen in a game. They're like kind of squishy and like they almost feel like you're holding berries in your hand. It's weird.
So this is the collector's edition, and there's two main differences before we get into all. We're kind of gushing from the start. There's two main differences. Number one, there are these doors that you're going to place on some of the locations to close off those locations. These are wooden in the collector's edition, and they're just cardboard in the regular.
That's right, as well as these victory point tokens, which are, you're going to get metal coins with the collector's edition instead of punch outs. And also, the collector's edition comes with the expansion already in the box,
which has legendary creatures.
Yeah, it offers legendary creatures. I think it's like something like 20 more cards added into the game.
Okay, so let's reel it back and talk about the game. It is a worker placement game at its heart. The game is going to take place over four different seasons.
Yeah.
And each of these seasons is unique because they're going to occur for different players at different times depending upon the actions that you take with your workers on the board. Each player is going to start with 2 workers at the start of the game, but by the end of the game they're going to have 6 workers. These workers are going to be placed on very specific locations on the board. Some of these locations can hold multiple people. Some of these locations can hold single people. There's also cards in the game that you're going to be able to acquire and place into your tableau that you can place them on. Also, there are locations on cards that are open and have little open signs on them that you can place on other people's cards. So there's a lot of interactivity on where you can place all of your different workers throughout the game.
Yeah, there's going to be, it's really going to open up. And also, when you place on somebody else's card, you're giving them a victory point.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to weigh that decision a little bit.
These worker placement spots do a variety of different things. They're mostly going to give you resources and cards.
Yeah, so the 4 different main types of resources, the twigs, resin, pebbles, and berries. And I like that they're kind of thematically inserted into the board, which is kind of neat.
And obviously the components here are fantastic. You have wooden twigs, these berries, and they're hard to show these on camera, but they are actually plastic and spongy.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I've never seen anything like this before. They actually look like actual berries. The pebbles are smooth, and then the resin are like colored amber crystals.
Yeah, and I like that as you move down the basic worker placement spots, it kind of ties into where you're drawing these from, which is kind of neat.
Some of these are going to allow you just to draw the resources themselves and place them on your side of the board. Some of them are going to also allow you to take some of the cards, which are nestled here face down underneath of the tree. Also on your turn, you can go to a variety of other worker placement locations on the board. There are 4 spots that are randomly chosen at the very start of the game out of a giant stack of cards that you can actually use. So the variability right there from the start is pretty intense. Also, you have locations here down across the bottom, which are usually used, this one especially at the end of the game, where you're discarding a bunch of cards to gain victory points. And there's also locations up here. These are all special events that you can try to do by collecting very specific critters and very specific construction pieces into your tableau.
Yeah, and there's 8 event tiles, which are thematically like they're victory point tiles.
Yeah.
And you have 4 down on the bottom just for having a certain sets of things inside your city, but also these up here are really cool. Because not only do you have to have specific people to trigger them, they give you specific bonuses and in-game scoring conditions as well. So like you can really plan your strategy based around these event cards that come out. And like you said, there's a ton of those too.
As well.
So you're playing a very different game every time you play.
And not only that, But there's also the worker placement spots from the cards that you're going to be collecting through the course of the game and placing on your side. The great thing is you can place them on your locations, and as we said at the very beginning, there's open spots. Some of these locations have an open symbol or an open sign on the actual card itself, meaning you can go to that other player's location, but you're giving a victory point in order to do that.
Yeah, and let's talk about the cards really quick.
Yeah.
Because there are a variety of different cards. You did mention that there are critters and constructions. Critters are like the animals that live in your city. Constructions are the buildings. What's interesting is that all of the constructions, the buildings, have specific critters that can move into them.
Yeah.
If you've already built the building and you have that critter in your hand or somewhere out here on the meadow, you can play them for free into your city, but you have to take one of these little occupy tokens and place it on that building. So you can only move one thing in for free into each building.
So it's kind of like Seven Wonders in that sense.
A little
Once you
bit,
build
yeah.
something, you can also build something in the future for free. Let's talk about how the actual game works. So as we said, on your turn, you're simply taking one of your workers and you're placing on one of these locations and collecting those resources or doing whatever it actively allows you to do. Also, instead of doing that, you can play a card from your hand.
Or from the meadow.
Or from the meadow, yeah. In the middle of the game board, you're going to have 8 cards at all times that are available for anybody to purchase and basically build out in front of their tableau. Now, the tableau itself is a 3x5 grid, which is basically 15 cards that you can have by the end of the game, no more than that. And you can't replace cards. You have to be very careful about the cards that you do build within your grid. Paying for any of these cards is done by whatever's in the upper left-hand corner. All these have different denominations of resources that you have to use. When you place this card, they're going to provide you victory points at the end of the game. Some of them provide you victory points, some of them don't. Some of them provide you negative victory points, so there's ways of placing those in other people's tableaus. There's not a whole lot to take that in the game, though.
There's a little bit.
There's very few of it.
Yeah.
And then also you're going to notice several different icons that are in the middle left-hand portion of the cards, and these provide 5 different types of things through the course of the game. One of the main ones is the green ones called production. This allows you to, the moment that you place it, you get some kind of unique benefit right then. But also, during the rounds, during these different seasons, you're also going to be able to rekey into those cards at those specific times.
Yeah, building your production out is really helpful because you're getting those, yeah, like you said, multiple times throughout the game. However, they tend to score less victory points. So if you go too heavy on production, you're kind of going to suffer for it when you get to the end of the game.
Yeah, one of the other main types of cards in the game, as well, are these purple prosperity cards. These have a little fan on the corner. These always provide you with in-game scoring possibilities, so they're kind of a carrot that you're trying to chase through the course of the game. So on your turn, you're doing one of those 2 things. You're placing a worker, or you're playing a card from your hand or from the meadow, until you can't do either one of them.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where the game gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because there are 4 seasons, we said earlier. You start in winter. When you run out of things to do, you have to pass. You have to prepare for the next season. You pull all of your workers back off the board, plus you take your next worker from up on the tree. What that does, it moves you on to the next season. So I'm moving from winter to spring. I'm resetting with 4 workers. You might still be in winter, or you might be a phase ahead. Which, if you've played this game a lot and you know how to maximize your actions, you're going to be spending a lot more time in each season than other players. So
that's right.
Learning when to rest and move on to the next season is really important.
Yeah, if you notice across the top of the tree here, there's the 3 other seasons with the columns of the workers that you're going to be acquiring when you pass or go into your next season. Also, during each of these phases, especially the spring and the autumn, you're going to be able to reuse your green cards that you have in front of you. And during the summer phase, you don't use your green cards, but you're allowed to take any 2 of the meadow cards and put them directly in your hand. So you're kind of snatching those to be able to play later. But the unique thing is, as you said, everyone's moving at a different pace in the game. And when you pull off the board, you're then opening up new spots for other players, which is very unique.
Yeah, it is. You kind of want to, like, if I know you're about to pass and I really want an action spot you've taken, maybe I want to hold on to my worker and try to just play cards. Even if the cards aren't great for me, just get them into my tableau, kill some action so that I can use that spot as soon as you pass.
Right. The game is actually going to end when all the players have gone through all 4 of the different seasons and everyone has passed at the autumn phase. And then you're going to do a point scoring total for all the different things that you have done through the course of the game. Of course, all of your cards that you have in front of you are going to give you victory points according to whatever it has in the middle right-hand section. If you have any of the prosperity cards, which are these purple cards that you see here, they're also going to give you victory points according to what you have done through the course of the game. You're also getting victory points for any of these special events that you've collected with a worker placement card. These are going to give you victory points for very specific type of things that you've collected as well. Also, you have the regular event cards. Any of these that you've collected as well. Now, as you said at the very beginning, there's 4 of these that are placed up on the board, and they all require one of your workers to go to, but they require very different things. Like this one here requires 4 of the growth cards or the green cards into your area, plus the worker to place on there. So there's a little bit of a race built into there as well.
Yeah, there is, because you don't. It's not about just meeting the requirements. You have to actually claim it.
Yeah.
So you can kind of, if you've already have the requirements, you can kind of watch and see, and just take that action right before somebody else does, and take that event tile away from them.
There's also 2 other ways to collect victory points. Any of the tokens that you've collected, or coins in this case, that you collected through the course of the game, you're getting victory points. And then finally, across the bottom here, that's the journey track. These are going to give you victory points according to how many cards you've discarded by going to that location.
Yeah, there are a lot of ways to score victory points.
Yeah.
And you really want to make sure that you've got your tableau filled, because if you in the game with some empty holes in your tableau, that's points you're just not scoring. I mean, that's, you really want to throw down cards. And I think that's where the intricacy of the game comes in. There are so many different cards. There are duplicates. I mean, it's not, every card is not unique, but there are a ton of unique cards.
Yeah.
And learning those combos and trying to maximize those combos, there's a lot of depth there.
I think that's where the game, to me, really grabbed my attention. As we originally said at the very beginning, I was deceptively, in a good way, deceived by the game because I thought it would be a very simple game. When you even introduced it to me, you said, it's kind of a gateway game. I don't know if you're going to like it, but there's a lot of card combinations in here, and there's a lot of cards, as you just said. And it's going to take some time to wrap your head around all the different creatures and how they combo with these construction pieces, which cards can layer on top of each other. There's also a lot of text on these cards that do very specific things. Some of them, I'm looking at the shepherd right here, and it shows 3 resources or 3 berries. But if you put your finger down here, it says to an opponent.
Yeah.
And you don't notice those things right from the beginning, but you're giving someone else resources. And there's a lot of those little things throughout the cards that are littered, and you really have to read and pay attention to all these cards, because even though there's a lot of text, it's very simple to understand, but there's just a lot of stuff going on.
Right, it is, and I think that's more the point I make when I teach people this game. It is simple to learn, because
Very
you're
simple.
only doing 2 things. You're either placing a worker, playing a card. That's it. And anyone that's played any kind of worker, like these worker placement spots are very easy to understand. Most of these worker placement spots, you're just taking resources. However, you're right. It is like the cards that add that depth, because you can be going in a direction with your tableau and then see some new cards that come out and, oh, maybe I want to go this direction instead. But if you do that, maybe you're not scoring maximum points at the end of the game either. So you have to really think about that.
One of the negatives, too, on the other side is that it can be a tracking nightmare for some people that don't look at their tableau all the time and recognize what they have going for them. Because a lot of times you're going to collect some of these cards that are called destination cards that have worker placement spots on them. Or if you're not looking around the board to see what other worker placement spots people have created, you can kind of get lost in all the different things that are going on. And that can be a problem for some people. For me, I enjoy that aspect of it. I like when the game starts to, through the rounds or through the seasons, it starts to open up and there's more options for everybody to do.
Yeah, and I think that's my only con, my only negative I think about this. If you don't have a good teacher that explains to you how this works, if you spend your actions inefficiently, just you could basically put 2 guys down, play 1 card, and that's your whole turn.
Because you've wasted everything on those resources, and then you're done. You literally can't do anything else.
So if you don't combo your cards, if you don't grab those production cards that get more resources, like there are ways to stretch out your turn. And if you don't, if you're just taking 3 actions and passing, you could end the game.
You can end your game.
You can end your game.
And that's the problem. Yeah.
Run out of actions well before the next player runs out of actions.
I agree. But on the flip side, too, for people like us who are experienced gamers, I think that opens up a style of game like this to us, where we enjoy it more. The other thing I'll say, it may look like a gimmick, all these different kinds of resources that are really slick, this tree that has 0 purpose in the game other than to hold some stuff,
cool.
But it looks fantastic on the table. Not to mention, the art in this game is spectacular. I mean, this is some of the best graphic design and best art that I've ever seen. It is beautiful when you have this on the table. Everybody, so we played it the other night, and everybody that walked by is like, well, what is that? That's
people are coming over from across the room, coming to look and see what we were playing. And the theme, I love the theme. And it's super thematic. If you look through the rule book, you've got more art in the rule book. You've got cool little, there's notes from the different characters that you'll find in the rule book. There's poems that some of these characters have written that are in the rule book, which is really cool. It all just kind of sells that theme.
Yeah. Super pleasantly surprised by this game. I enjoyed it a lot. This is Everdell. This is the collector's edition. I think it will be on sale at Gen Con.
The collector's edition will be on sale at Gen Con. You can get the collector's edition direct from their website. Otherwise, there will be a retail version that comes out in stores.
I don't know why you wouldn't get this one.
Yeah, get the collector's version for sure.
If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, everything else that we do, and we will catch you guys next time.